Okay, so I'll just dive right into it. I do want this to be open-ended, so if you have any questions, feel free to stop me, jump in. We'll certainly take some questions at the end as well. We booked an hour. We'll see how many questions and that sort of stuff we get. And yeah, I mean, we'll be probably at least half an hour, 45 minutes, and we'll see if we end up using the full hour. So, okay, we'll dive right in. So that's me, Digital Fire. We're outsourced IT with a focus on cybersecurity. So what's going on? We hear a lot about cybersecurity and hacks and all sorts of stuff in the news. So, and rightfully so, 600% increase since the start of the pandemic. And there's one big reason. It's because it's profitable. But yeah, some notable hacks. Howard University, August 2021. The Colonial Pipeline you probably heard of. You couldn't get gas on the eastern part of the United States, and especially Florida and North Carolina for a good few days, maybe a week. The JBS beef was shut down for 2 days. So gas, food. Kaseya was hacked in July, so that's IT stuff. The Houston Rockets basketball team was hacked in April. Colonial Pipeline ended up paying $4.4 million in ransom. JBS paid $11 million in ransom. This one is not very well known, but it's scary because the water treatment plant in Florida, Oldsmar, I don't know, I've never heard of it, but it's a place, and that was in February, and they hacked in and increased the amount of lye that they were putting into the water to unsafe levels. So this is where people, that's really dangerous for people. Like, it's one thing to not be able to get gas and not be able to get some beef. You could probably get chicken instead. I don't mean to make light of that, but extra chemicals in the water is potentially life-threatening. CNA Financial. In March 2021, that's a giant financial company in the US. And yeah, probably some of you have heard of it, I'm sure. Lots and lots of money going to ransom. So it's profitable. Like a really terrible hacker. If you don't know, like you really don't know anything about computers, you can take some courses, $45 a month for the tools, and they'll do tech support on how to help you to hack and learn and that sort of stuff. $65K US dollars per month very quickly. Each record is worth somewhere between $1 and $8, depending on what's included in it. So each record meaning each item of the thing you stole. So a credit card is worth more. Someone's password or their email address or health card number or their driver's license, that sort of stuff, any information about them. So somewhere between $1 and $8 per record. I mean, once you're in, stealing 20,000 records off a database or something, 10,000 records, it's not, once you're in, you're in. It doesn't matter so much to steal 50,000 records or 10 records. So yeah, you will be hacked at some point. Okay, here's an admission. I fell for it yesterday. Scott is on this call and he pointed it out, and I fell for a phishing attempt, hook, line, and sinker. Like, here I am doing a security webinar. I've done a bunch of these, and we're a security company, and I fell for it. So it was Adobe Business Catalyst. And they Adobe, and they used to make websites, and years ago, we were a business catalyst. They had a platform kind of like WordPress, but sort of a marketing platform. And we were a partner of that many years ago. I got an email saying, okay, we're finally shutting down Business Catalyst. It was from Adobe, or so I thought. And you have $700 in this portal. Please log into the portal because there's, and I thought, yeah, this, I was a partner for that. Let me log into the portal and see what's going on. Because maybe there's some money there that I forgot to collect, because the way Business Catalyst worked is they charge the client and then they would pay us. So, yeah, here I am doing a webinar on cybersecurity, and I fell for it. And Scott pointed it out because I couldn't reset the password, and then, but we're a Business Catalyst partner, and it was, so I thought it was actually from Business Catalyst, and there was one of the letters I think was different. So, yeah, I fell for it, and so, everyone can fall for it. I hope, anyways. Maybe I'm the stupid one, but I do say that everyone falls for it at some point. So it's that you will get hacked. Thankfully, nothing happened. I didn't give them any payment information. We ended up resetting the password, whatever. But it was over a few days where I was like, oh, I can't reset the password. Then we contact support, and Scott. I asked Scott to help me, etc. And yeah, I fell for it hook, line, and sinker. So they even sent back instructions on how to reset the password. There was like several emails back and forth. So yeah, anyone can get caught by it. Hopefully, hopefully I'm not the only stupid one. I don't think so. But you feel pretty dumb, right? But it's going to be something like that, and it's going to be someone in your company, and they're going to feel really bad, but the damage is done, right? So what do we do to prepare? And so, okay, I wanted to spend a little bit of time on the Canadian sort of privacy commissioner, the Office of the Privacy Commissioner, and whether you need to report and what is considered a breach, etc. So, so the loss of or unauthorized access to or unauthorized disclosure of personal information resulting from a breach of an organization's security safeguards. That is the official definition of what is considered a breach, right? So unauthorized disclosure of personal information. So that's pretty broad. What does that mean? But that's from PIPEDA. And so do all breaches need to be reported to the Privacy Commissioner of Canada? And the answer is no. The law requires that you report any breach involving personal information. And there's this concept of the real risk of significant harm to an individual. So you have to make a self-determination. In other words, you got hacked, you figure out what the hackers might have got, and then you make some determination of, is there a real risk of significant harm to that individual if this information got into the wrong hands? So what kind of information was released, and is there a risk of significant harm? So there's two criteria to assess whether there's risk of significant harm. It's the sensitivity and the probability, right? So if you can Google that information about the person and get that information, that's probably not so sensitive. The example they give, and they do it very politically correctly, although some information, for example, medical records is almost always considered to be sensitive, right? Other information can be considered to be sensitive depending on the case, so that if there were names and addresses, which is something you could Google, or Canada411.ca, but if that was a subscriber to a special interest magazine, it might be considered sensitive. So even names and addresses could be considered sensitive. And then the probability that that information is being used or will be misused. So those two things. So that's whether you should report. And then what's likely to happen is that they would ask you to provide some sort of forensic investigation. Those start at about $25,000. So it would be an external company who would come in and do a forensic investigation to see what happened, get some logs, try to put together some evidence of when they got in, what they got, what they touched, how data left, etc., how long they were in there, try to get what happened and piece together that puzzle. And then based on that would be some recommended remediation. There are financial penalties to it. The Officer of the Privacy Commissioner of Canada is not able to levy financial penalties. They would then refer the matter to some sort of other body. I don't know if it's a court, to be honest, but and then they would proceed with fines, sort of thing. I'm told that what's written is $100,000, even for small businesses. But I don't know of a single case yet where that's actually been used, except for one where, well, it's not in the cybersecurity realm, it's in the spam realm, where there was a company that was repeatedly doing the CAN spam, anti-CAN spam stuff, and they got a $100,000 fine for repeatedly continuing to spam people, even though they got warnings and that sort of thing. So I'm hoping that there wouldn't be, a $100,000 fine to a small business, et cetera, for being hacked, for being the victim. But that is the way things are written at the moment. It's hopefully not going to be enforced, in that you're not penalized for being hacked, for being the victim of a hack. But that does tend to be the case. There's one happening right now with VoIP.ms, which is a VoIP provider. They have certain phone numbers. You might notice that our phone number is down. We have a 1-800 number and a 905 number, and our 905 number has had various reliability issues. They've been, the VoIP.ms is the target of a DDoS attack, which is a distributed service attack where the hackers gather a whole bunch of legitimate computers, take them over, and then send a whole bunch of traffic towards your servers. So they don't actually get in and break anything from the inside or steal anything, but they overwhelm the server with all sorts of traffic. And so you can't tell what's legit traffic and what's not legit traffic. And so, the phone number doesn't work or is unreliable because the server's too busy to put the call through, because it's dealing with just massive amounts of requests from random things over the internet that are overwhelming those servers. They are asking for they initially asked for $25,000 of ransom, and they had a few hours, I think, to pay it. They didn't get paid, and then they upped it to $5 million. We're a week into that DDoS attack. They're doing stuff to try to make it better, and it is a little bit better, but it is still absolutely ongoing. So this stuff can wreak havoc, and it's very hard to defend against. We're all sitting here upset at why our phones don't work and mad at VoIP, and this is literally happening right now, right? And so there's actually very little detail about it, because they don't want to release detail, because any release of the details of what they're doing, the hackers can use that information as well. So it's a really difficult situation. And you can make all sorts of arguments for, well, they should have been better prepared, and they should have, all those are true. But the fact is that anyone can get hacked. And if you're a target like that, like their servers are specific, because their servers are published, their servers are specifically being targeted. You could have some really, really good defenses, and still be attacked if you're being targeted like that. You could potentially mitigate it. You could make it better. You do want to be prepared, but it is very, very scary. They are claiming to be Revel. Revel has known ties to the Russian government. There's some doubt about that, because apparently Revel was taken out by, again, people think it was the U.S. In response to the Kaseya attack, because they did do the Kaseya attack in July, and then a few days into the attack, Biden was asked if they were going to respond. He said simply yes. A few days after that, Revel's public websites went down, and a little while after that, the encryption key to remove all the ransomware was publicly released. That was the timeline of information. There was no, you don't know whether the U.S. was involved, frankly, but that was the timeline of what happened. Is Revel back, or is this, someone claiming to be Revel, right? Remember the Princess Bride, where it said, nobody's going to be afraid of the Dread Pirate Wesley. It's the Dread Pirate Roberts that has the name, and so if you claim that the name is the important thing, so Wesley becomes the Dread Pirate Roberts, and that's what scares people. So they can, is this some crew? Because Revel has never done DDoS attacks before. That is not generally their modus operandi. So. Don't know if it's actually Revel or who it is, or if it is associated with the Russian government. Maybe it's just someone claiming to be Revel, because there have been hacks since July of people claiming to be Revel that have been discovered not to be. So regardless, it's bad, and we should be protecting ourselves. And it is becoming a scary world out there, and more of a scary world. The U.S. administration, Biden has made it a top national security priority. This is cyber warfare. It is nation states against each other, and we're all sort of caught up in the middle with financial data, with IT stuff. We're seeing this in IT, in financial, and insurance. Those are where everyone's being hacked, but the largest amount of activity is in those three sectors. Easier said than done. We have to lock all the windows and doors, and they just have to find one tiny little crack, and they can use that to get in and elevate. There's this concept called lateral movement that is, it's not new to hackers, but it's relatively new in responding to things, where a hacker can get in to, they use a window to get into a room. And once they're in that room, they can then move from that room to the hallway, to another room, to the staff room, to the storage room, to the warehouse, they can laterally move through the organization once they're in. The zero trust concept, you might have heard of that, is the idea of locking every door. So if a hacker gets in through a window or through a door and they get into that one room, in order to get from that one room into the hallway or into the next room, they would require to re-authenticate. So it requires users, you, at every step to log in to each application. So on a practical standpoint, you log into your email, you log into Evernote, you log into Google Drive, you log into your computer, you log into your, so some of you already have that, but it's making sure that that's sort of all the way across, because the traditional network is you VPN in or you log in, now you're in. You can access printers, you can access this server, you can access that server. You don't re-authenticate because you were authenticated at the door to the building. Once you're in the building, you can access all the rooms in the building just fine. So this is re-authentication at every door, every application. That's the concept of zero trust. And, security and convenience. There's always that. I mean, right? Yesterday was the first day where we had to start showing vaccine passports, right? I mean, I'm trying to draw an analogy that we can all talk about, but it's that, if you have to, that's inconvenient, right? I mean, support it or don't support it, etc. I'm not weighing in on whether it should be there or shouldn't be there, although my personal view is that I like it because it's safety, but it is, there's no question it's inconvenient, right? On October 22nd, hopefully we'll get the app and you pull out your phone, it'll be easier, but for now you got to carry a piece of paper, or you got to show it, it's definitely delaying things. And yes, it's necessary and for the better and all that sort of stuff, but yeah, there's this security and convenience. That's a good analogy of it. It suddenly is less convenient to go into places because I have to, and for my kids and for et cetera, we gotta carry all this stuff and have it and make sure and that sort of stuff. And so that's the way it is with security. And it's zero trust is way less, it's a pain in the butt. But yeah, that's what we're having to do now, right? I mean, you have to take off your shoes when you go through security at the airport. We haven't done that in a long time, but when you go to the US, there was, one hack or one shoe bomber thing and it's terrible, right? But it's that sort of thing where it's inconvenient and we just have to all deal with it. But the cost is going up because it now takes longer to travel because you have to go through a lot more security to do it. So it takes longer to go to the gym and back because you have to go through the screening at the door to be able to get in, right? So that's where we are with security. So some super new statistics from that just got released in August. So these are out of the UK, and yeah, 4 in 10 businesses, quarter of charities report breaches in the last 12 months. So from August 2021, 12 months back. So 40% of businesses report that they got hacked. That's a lot. 39%. Yeah, larger businesses, medium businesses, high-income charities, those are the ones reporting more. I don't know that small businesses aren't getting hacked, because the way this works is some bot is going through and trying usernames and passwords. So I wouldn't interpret that as small businesses are not as much of a target. I would say that they are, small businesses are maybe less likely to report it, and so we don't have the stats on it. That would be my take on that. Because when I do have stats from previous years where it's like by industry, and it's pretty even across industry, slightly higher in healthcare, but only a few percentage points. It's pretty even across industries in terms of who gets hacked. And that makes sense because the way it works is, somebody buys a list of 200,000 names on it with usernames and passwords. Some bot is going through it, trying those passwords, trying different versions of those passwords with @ symbols or exclamation marks, combining databases from different sources and overlapping them, so that you can say, well, they used this password on this website and the same email address used that password on that website. Let's look at the similarities of those and try variations on those. Now, instead of taking 10 years to crack that password with an algorithm, it'll probably only take a few weeks or a few months, because they have some initial idea of what your 2 passwords that you previously used that are confirmed, and now they narrow the possibilities of those. So obviously there's significant changes in the way we work. A lot of people are back to the office, but it's not 100% back to the office. There's still a good percentage of remote. And the thing is that in the office, and this is part of Digital Fire's modus operandi, is we try to control the environment, right? There's a router, a network, a secured Wi-Fi, there's secure switches. If there's crazy traffic on port 27, we can see it and we can say, what is going on port 27? There's an alert there. Doing that is still possible when everybody's remote and at home, but it's harder because everybody's got their own stuff and we don't control the environment. By stuff, I mean your Wi-Fi. I mean, how many people have had problems with Wi-Fi over the last 2 years at home? Certainly the networks have been stretched. The home network was never designed for that kind of use. And so it's much harder to do. So IT, and we've seen it, our IT team is stretched. We've had to hire more people, and there's just a lot more going on. And so security is going up. The need for IT has gone up. Resources have gone down. It's kind of a bad combination, and it's easy pickings for people to do hacking right now. So add to that the chip shortage. So upgrading hardware, software is crazy right now. We are having, Scott spends probably at least a third of his day every day trying to procure hardware where, well, the 512 is available, but the 256 is not. We're doing things like, well, the French version's available with the French keyboard, so let's buy a laptop keyboard that is the English keyboard, and we'll buy the French version and swap out the keyboard on a laptop on a brand new machine, because we can't get the English version because they're all sold out. The French version is a little less popular, so there's still 2 or 3 of those in stock. Let's buy those and same laptop and switch out the keyboard. Some crazy stuff is going on now that we're having. Before we got one that was, we ordered 8 laptops for a client. One was DOA. Normally you just return that. There's a bunch more in stock. There's nothing in stock. So they need 8 laptops. We're having to repair the brand new laptop because, the ETA for it is 3 months to get a replacement for that machine. It's an engineering machine with a super high-end specs, and so it would have been a little bit rare anyways, but just, there's all sorts of crazy things happening right now. So it's kind of, perfect storm is too much of a cliche, but it's hard to get new hardware. People are working from home. IT resources are stretched. Everyone's out of patience too, right? So, pandemic, it's like the perfect time if you're a hacker so it's no accident why we're seeing so many hacks and so much going on. So that's kind of state of things. It's prime time to be a hacker, and that in all this, we're expected to protect against hackers. That most people haven't had the time to do anything really about security, or to train, or to add more tools, or to and we'll talk about the security triangle in a little bit, but it's in this in the current state of things with IT resources being stretched, and not to mention the money, right? I mean, how many people we're still here, right? All of us on this call are still here. There are people who aren't here, who went out of business, right? And yes, there are government subsidies and all that sort of stuff. And I'm, I am personally, and we're thankful in general that that's happened. And we're still here. Put one foot in front of the other, and we're still here. There's people that aren't, but it's not like most people. Some have done well in the pandemic, but many people have not. And so, to spend more money on cybersecurity, it's a tough ask, and I get it. And that's the truth of where things are. It is a super difficult situation. So there's no accident why we're seeing these hacks. So not that many organizations, 20%, 30%, 12% have done these audits and extra security training and all, because they're busy and they don't have any money, that's the scenario we're in. And so not enough people have done, for lots of legitimate reasons, but the reality is that not enough people have done enough to protect themselves in this new security landscape. So there's the threat. Would I call it a sitting duck? I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's certainly very serious. So organizations have sought some external guidance in the last 12 months, or some sort of thing. So this seems to contradict the previous slide. It's from the same report, but they've done something, but probably not a whole lot. Again, these stats are from the UK. So by activity, we don't need to go over all the details, but it's 50% have done something, right? Anything. Have they done something on cybersecurity, right? And then invested in threat intelligence, penetration testing, vulnerability audits, right? So these are the types of things, risk assessments, that you can do to figure out where you are, and then what you can do about it. And then this is a little bit about insurance, because I want to talk about insurance. Is very few people have a separate insurance one. Most people have it included in their insurance. I am getting about roughly on average, 2 a week of clients, and even just people that I know that ask me for a review on they're renewing their insurance, and they would like, suddenly the thing has gone from a couple pages to 10 pages and 3 pages on cybersecurity and all the different things they're asking for. Again, I'm getting about 2 or 3 a week from clients that are just, questions that insurance companies are suddenly asking that they've never asked before. I think that's the exact same slide twice. So who saw an increase in phishing attacks? So phishing is still the number one. That's the one I got caught with that I was talking about earlier. It's an email, and it looks legit, and it wasn't the Nigerian prince that wants to give me $1 million to be able to transfer their assets, right? Like, it's a lot harder to spot these days. That's the most likely way that it's going to come through. You click on it and something runs on your computer, and et cetera, et cetera. So got to be super, super careful. And increase in the number of phishing attacks by country. Israel has seen the largest increase in phishing attacks. And this is about where we were last year. This graph was the other way, as a horizontal instead of vertical, but we were about 3/4 of the way last year too, in terms of an increase. So there's 65% increase over last year, but in terms of how we compare to other countries and phishing attempts in Canada versus other countries, it's still a lot, still a big increase. But yeah, that's where we were about in comparison to other countries last year too. The amount of money people are paying and the downtime, we're a week into the VoIP.ms one. The JBS, the beef, I don't know what you call them, the supplier, they lost 2 days of full production because they paid $11 million of ransom. If you don't pay the ransom, it takes a lot longer to get back. Typically, averages 19 days, right? So how would things work for your business if you were unable to respond to customers, unable to provide services, unable to email for 19 days? And in the meantime, we're being attacked, basically had to work 24/7 and had all of your customers angry at you and thought it was your fault for not taking enough precautions to protect yourself. Has a bad month, and the lasting impact to the business, right, is are we likely to keep our numbers with VoIP.ms? Am I going to recommend that to customers right now? And I understand that they're a victim of an attack. Totally get that, but yeah, it's just a really terrible situation. So, we don't want to be in that situation if we can avoid it. So yeah, it used to be a couple pages for errors, omissions, standard business liability. Now it can be 10 plus pages with 3, 4, 5 pages on security. I've seen ones where they did it on us in July, where they actually run software, and then the software reports back what it finds, and then you get an insurance quote based on that. And it feels to me like the insurance companies aren't. There's a few that are tech savvy, but by and large, most are not. And from reading these things, it's not balanced. It's not sensitive to small business. Meaning, I'm reading these applications and they are very assumptive. Please send us your last SEM log report and how many threats it found. So first of all, that assumes that you have a scene. You know what that is, that there's log aggregation happening. I mean, setting that up is probably a month of work and probably $5,000 to $10,000. And that's one item out of 2 pages of stuff. And it's sort of the assumption is, well, of course you're doing this. And that is not the case for small business. Log aggregation has been an enterprise thing for many, many years. And it's like, we do have logs and we have alerts and that sort of thing, but SIEM is a whole different ballgame. That's setting up a security operations center. That's part of a SOC. That's a whole thing. And to have it be a simple checkbox on it, and that's one example. There's the pages of this stuff where it feels to me, and this is my personal Leslie Babel, opinion, it feels to me like the insurance companies Googled some stuff about what they should do and stuck it on there and sent out these applications. I'm sure it's more sophisticated than that. Basically, their risk has gone way up, and I don't think they know how to handle it. I don't think they are able to accurately calculate who can. So I think they're just going to the other extreme and asking for all this stuff because it covers them. Because you're forced to say, no, I'm sorry, I don't have that. And then that's a reason for them to charge higher insurance rates. So there's a real upheaval in the insurance industry right now with this stuff. And I'm hoping it's going to balance out at some point. But I feel like it's really gone the other way, where they are asking for the moon in terms of what you should have for cybersecurity. And I love, I'm an IT guy. Like, let's add more stuff for cybersecurity. Let's get you better protected. But I mean, I also own a business, and it's fun to talk about this stuff. But sure, give me a blank check. I'll spend $500,000 this week on your cybersecurity. But that's not the reality, and that is what I feel like the insurance company applications are asking for. Is the cost of this stuff has to be factored into being able to do business. So there's a real unsolved conundrum here about how we're going to do this. I mean, does that mean that all of our business costs just have to go up by X percentage because we have to pay for these security things? Does that mean the insurance companies are going to let up a bit? But are they going to take on the risk? How do they mitigate all this stuff is up in the air right now. So the state of cybersecurity is very confusing right now. And so we're just trying to do the best we can. Everyone is, but that's the way things are right now with insurance. Is the insurance companies are just saying, I don't know, I don't understand this liability thing yet. We don't know where it's going to go. Let's just cover our behinds and ask for the moon, and that way they're doing they're covering themselves. So yeah, tough situation. Okay, so how do we think about security? And I'll go through a few more slides, and then we'll be into questions and stuff. So 3 aspects of security, because we all love to think about the detection piece. Can I have a firewall, a doohickey, some antivirus, some anti-malware software? Can I have something that I buy and I put in, and that will help, and it will, then I will be secure, right? That's the classic thing that we think of. But there are 2 other bits to it that if you don't do them, these can't really do their job. You should have antivirus, and you should have a spam filter, and you should have some anti-malware. EDR is the artificial intelligence anti-malware stuff. So threat hunting, meaning actively doing it. There's some interesting new product we have that we're deploying to a couple of clients called Threat Locker, where and it actually is the first one that helps with this lateral movement that we talked about across, where the hacker gets into a room, but they don't necessarily have permission to get to the other room. So that's a real interesting one. It because all of the detection pieces, the logic is this is good, that's bad. Lots of fancy ways of doing that: antivirus, anti-malware, and artificial intelligence, and blah blah blah. Humans at a socket, but ultimately at high level, it's this is good, this is bad. Please don't have the bad. They're detecting. The threat locker piece stops all of that. It kind of turns the model on its head and goes, well, let's observe the environment for a couple of weeks. Here's what normal looks like. Let's lock it down, and only normal is allowed to run, nothing else. So something else tries to run that is outside normal, stop. No. So there's no determination of good versus bad. There's just normal versus abnormal, which is an interesting way to look at it. Okay, but you go to new websites all the time. It's pretty normal to suddenly need a new program, or like an add-in to a new program. What if Word wants to do an update? I mean, how many computer updates are there? Daily patches and all that. So how do you handle that, right? It's not necessarily like it's as simple as a concept, but so what happens is that you have to lock it down, and the person goes, I want to run this new software for my 2 p.m. deadline. And then it has to alert somebody, and there has to be an approval chain. Who's going to be that? You guys, us, someone, and who's going to respond in a timely manner so that the person can meet their deadline by 2 p.m., right? It gets complicated fast, and it starts to interrupt business fast. And so you pay this price for the security, so there's a business decision to be made there. But anyways, that's the detection piece, but it really is only a third of the puzzle. The bottom part of the triangle is the human piece, is the human training. So, you're here today, and that's good. So you're learning about security and you're aware of it, right? So maybe if you get a phishing email this afternoon, you might not fall for it like I did yesterday. Talking about it in your organization, having people be aware of it. We send out some fake phishing emails as well that most of you get. And then some regular reporting that happens on that a few times a year to get some measurement of who in your organization. And by the way, it's generally upper management that falls for it, right? So, I'm the owner of the company. I fell for it yesterday. It's the human side of it. And that is where, the social engineering piece and the I was going to give an example of what's the guy died in a jail in South America. He's was the founder of McAfee. He bragged that he could break into anything. And it wasn't based on he did have pretty superior hacking skills, but it wasn't based on that. It was based on his ability to trick people, that he could socially engineer people into giving away the information he needed in order to get into whatever system it was. And so the human side, and that's the piece that is the phishing email. That's how they get in. That is if you do nothing else, the human side of it is actually the most important. The IT guy never said don't install antivirus, but the human side of it is the single most important beyond all of it. Because if you don't let them in, or if you don't, click on the email or et cetera, then all the rest of the stuff is after the fact. The detection, all that is already after the human has screwed up. So if the human doesn't screw up in the first place, then it doesn't get in. Okay, and then the last little bit is controls, and we are seeing this as well. These same insurance applications are starting to see, please tell us which security standard you have aligned to and when your last report was. Right? So it's not, are you thinking about it? Are you going to do it? Have you thought of it? When are you going to do it? It's, oh, you should have done this already. Show us the report and when you did it and how often you plan to do it going forward. That's the way insurance applications are worded. And it's sort of, we weren't even talking about security standards. IT people were, but not, it wasn't part of the regular stuff a couple of years ago. And here we are in the assumptive phase saying, well, you should have been doing this for years. So, why haven't you done it yet? And that's just simply not the case for most businesses. Again, enterprise, yes, but not in the small business sector. So controls are this idea of policies, and do you have to be an administrator on every system? Does everyone have to have administrative level access to your Evernote account or your Office 365 account? Who's an administrator on the Office 365 account? One just really small thing that we are doing now is it has been typical for owners, managers, key people at companies to be Office 365 administrators or Google Workspace administrators. If I'm a hacker, I can go to LinkedIn and I can figure out who the principals of the company are, and probably I should target them, get a phishing email in there, see if I can get them to give away their password. And if I get into that person's Office 365 account, then I can get into the admin and I can see the whole thing. Now I can see the files. Now I can see everybody's emails. Now I can set rules to forward things. It's bad. So we've been making the principles of companies not, and because it's not all the staff generally are administrators. That's already commonplace. But the owners, principals, partners, those people usually are administrators of the account and have full access to things. And so they should. But what we're doing instead is creating additional accounts. Call it Sebastian or Fred or Dominic or some other name, like somebody named after their dog. And that is the administrator. So if you need to do administrative functions, you have a separate login for that account. You go into there, then you can make users and create users. You can look at all the information you need to look at, et cetera. Close that off, go back to your own account, and your account is simply yours and your stuff. And you have the appropriate permissions just to do your job in the company. And everyone has the approach. So that's the controls bit, is everyone has the appropriate permissions just to do their job and nothing more. We talked about multi-factor authentication a lot. Everyone should have multi-factor authentication absolutely on their email. That's just please, please, please. If I said nothing else, go do that today. Set up two-factor authentication for your email, where you log in, where you reset your password on Office 365. You have to do it on the web, or Google Workspace to do it on the web as well. It's not in Outlook. But go and set up two-factor authentication and do that for everything. Do that for your bank. Do it for absolutely everything. So this controls bit is really important. So it's the policies around IT. And when you do these standards, NIST, CIS, 27,000 is the ISO one. COBIT is a general IT, standard IT, like general practices and has a security component to it, but it's general enterprise IT practices. So we're generally focused on NIST and CIS, which are two security ones. 27000 is part of ISO, which tends to be the whole manufacturing and ISO 9001, et cetera. So we're not doing the 27000, but the CIS and NIST are both organizations out of the US. NIST is associated with the US government. CIS is not. It is a not-for-profit. And we can talk about I'll go through some, how they compare, and then we'll go through some questions. So, yeah. So do you have I'm going to go through these ones fast, but do you have these things? Are you looking at these things for your organization? Email link protection, Soundbox, cloud file scanning, penetration testing. You probably have some, not all. Those are some options. That was the detection side of things. Controls is, have you looked at, is everybody an administrator? Are you thinking about standards, CIS, NIST? Do you have policies on acceptable use, bring your own device, that sort of thing? Should people be able to do gambling sites at work and poker sites and things like that? Do you have things like data loss prevention or encryption on the devices, or et cetera? And then the human side of things, have you talked about this? Does it come up in staff meetings? Have you created a culture where people don't feel stuck? I mean, I feel pretty stupid for clicking on it. I've said that a bunch of times, but, where it's okay to bring it up and say, look, I fell for it, and that means you might too. And let's bring it out in the open and talk about it instead of trying to hide it. And, that is a larger risk if you're trying to hide it, that you clicked on it, not tell anyone, and you're embarrassed and all that kind of stuff, because probably someone else got the same email or a similar email, right? So do an exercise, pretend that you got hacked, right? And who do you call? What are the phone numbers? Who's your internet provider? Who's your IT provider? Who are the key people that you need to involve? When are you going to tell insurance? When do you tell your lawyer? That sort of stuff, right? So super quick on the standards. CIS is not associated with the US government. And I would say they're probably a little bit further along. That's subjective. But theirs are very, very clear yes/no answers. And then the other one, so CIS has implementation group 1, 2, and 3. And the general landscape of these standards is you cannot do all of them. If you are 100% aligned to CIS and NIST, there's no way you can do business. The most secure banks and whatever are still only 60-70% aligned to these things. So we're not looking for 100% alignment in these. They are very high standards. But CIS is very practical, and it says, okay, we understand you don't have a lot of time to do this. You're trying to run a business. You want to get off the ground. Just get on the fairway with this. Whatever analogy you want to use, just do implementation group 1, and those are the green ones, right? So this is an overview of implementation group 1. So there's safeguards, 5 safeguards, 7 safeguards, 8 safeguards, 7. So those are how many questions are inside these. So inventory control, there's 5 questions in total. 2 of them are implementation group 1. Implementation group 2 is 4 of them, right? So it's like, the idea is like, we're just starting out. Let's do implementation group 1. Okay, so we're gonna do 2 of these questions, 3 of these questions, 6 of these questions, and it's the first. It's not any questions you want. It's these 2 are in the inventory 1, implementation group 1. If you're gonna set the bar a little higher for yourself and say that you need a bit more security, then implementation group 2 is what you go for, which means you do the first 4 of the inventory control section, right? And of the audit log management, you do 11 out of 12 for implementation group 2. So the standard goes actually pretty high up for implementation group 2. Like the 1 is here, and then 2 goes, that's a big jump. And then 2, and then 3 is like, we need to be Fort Knox. We need to be absolute. That's going to be banks, credit card companies. That's the custodians of money. Or just people who want to be super, super secure. So that's CIS. And then in addition to those, there's all those questions. And then for each of those questions, there's three aspects. Do you have it? Is it automated? And how often do you report on it? So, is two-factor authentication on? Is it enforced for everyone? So if I go and make a new user this afternoon, it's going to be on for that user automatically. Like it's on now for the users we have, but is it going to be on going forward? And then do I have some backup to tell me that some dumb thing didn't happen and whoops, that one wasn't on, right? So do I have a way to catch it, to report on it, and then remediate it, of course, right? To make sure that it stays on for everybody. And so, again, in the insurance application, can you show us the last report of your two-factor authentication audit, right? It's not, do you have two-factor authentication on? I mean, that's one of the questions, but then they go further and say, can you show us your last report of the audit you have for it? Again, the presumptive questions on the insurance side. And then NIST is a lot more subjective. This one is governmental based in the US. And it is it's these: recover, identify, protect, detect, respond. So these are the types of questions, and so they have questions in. So it starts at identify and then goes around the circle there. They have questions based on these things, and whereas the CIS are yes or no answers, and then there's a bit of room to talk about it, but there's a yes or no answer. These ones are not yes or no answers; they're paragraph-based answers, right? So you can write. So do you have two-factor authentication on? Yes, we do have it on for the following accounts that have the da-da-da-da. You can write a paragraph, and half your accounts don't have it on, but you're still compliant technically. So there's a difference there between NIST and CIS. NIST actually tends to be more popular in Canada. IROC and the Mutual Fund Dealers Association are both using NIST, just as some examples. So I think there's pros and cons to each. And the way we're actually doing it is there's a map between the two. And so we're actually going to do, we're doing audits so that you can map them to both. So if your insurance company particularly wants to see you on NIST, then we'll give you the stuff that says, okay, well, here's the answers to your NIST-based questions, and here's the answers to your CIS-based questions. And then some examples of the actual questions. Physical devices and systems in the organization are inventoried. These are just some examples of the types of things they ask for. Expected data flows is established and managed. Vulnerability scans are performed. Response plan is executed. So it's not, do you have a response plan? It's that it's used every time, right? Forensics are performed after every breach. Recovery plan. So it's not, do you have a recovery plan? It's have you used it, right? Public relations and management. So a bunch of the standards bits are actually not IT related. Right? It's maybe you have a press release ready to go that is half written or something like that, or at least thought about so that you can deal with this. Tell management, tell the incident response team. So who's the incident response team? Who's that going to be? Stop additional data loss by taking stuff offline. Like walk over to the thing and rip it out of the wall. And this is the IT guy telling you this, to like shut her down fast as possible. So you suspect something on the computer, turn it off, walk over to the server room, kick the door down and unplug it. Like pour water over it or something. I didn't say pour water over it, but like really, really, really quickly take it offline, turn it off. Because we don't know how bad it is. We don't know how much they're getting in. We don't know what systems are affected, et cetera. To minimize the damage, the best thing you can do as soon as you suspect something is shut it off. And then we, that buys time to figure out what it is, right? If someone's not getting back to you, or, we're not available immediately or something, shut it off. And then that buys time to deal with it in some logical, normal, serious way. So time is of the essence. So yeah, legal counsel, insurance, all those people and who you're going to notify and when and all that sort of stuff. Start writing stuff down. When did it happen? Who was involved? What you clicked on? That sort of stuff. Start documenting it. And then you start to look at, okay, how do you handle it and who do you need to notify? Do you need to notify people? What happened? How are we going to get back online? All those types of things. So yeah, that's what I got for today. So we're right up on the hour.